Should tanks use DPS gear? This is a topic I've discussed with many people, both new tanks and veteran tanks, new players and veteran players, and even across MMOs. Being pretty new to hardcore endgame raiding, I had to come to an answer myself on this question via my own experience and research in tanking. To me, it has always been something that feels obvious, but the more I tank with pugs, or the more times I get questioned on my gear/DPS, the more I was pushed to making this guide. The answer is both, but it is a bit more convoluted than that. If this seems obvious to you, keep in mind that I am not saying that all gear gives DPS, so it's both, because while that's true, that's a given and not my intent with this video. What I mean is it is context dependent. Most veteran tanks are already saying, well yeah, some fights require less defensive stats or cooldowns than others, but I'm talking more than just fight dependent. It's also raid dependent, gear dependent, and even player dependent. Let's break it down piece by piece. Imagine you had to solo a raid boss. Let's say this raid boss uses an attack every 1 minute for 10 million damage and never deals any other damage. Your tank spec heals to full health after 1 minute of taking no damage. Also assume you have no way to reduce incoming damage. For your gear, you can pick your stats perfectly, and one stat gives you HP, the other stat gives you damage. If you were to solo this boss, the minimum HP value you would need to successfully down this boss is 10 million and 1 HP. Any more stat points that give you health higher than that value are quite literally wasted stats that are better put into damage. Obviously this is a really simplistic example, but it is a perfect baseline for understanding the concept. Now let's throw it in a cooldown. What if you had a 1 minute CD that gives you 50% damage reduction? Well, then you only need 5 million and 1 HP, opening the door for more damage stats. Start adding more and more variables and you can always find the point where the maximum damage happens and how much HP you need to survive. Everything beyond that maximum value should be damage. Eventually, after hundreds of variables are added, you have a raid environment that is parallel to actual raids in the game. In reality, there are factors beyond our control, and oftentimes we cannot set ourselves perfectly to survive the largest delta of damage. Things like latency, human reaction time, RNG, etc. And this is why tanks need to err on the side of survivability, but your goal when optimizing your play is to be as close to that line as possible. By now you might be asking, why is this important? Well, I guess ultimately if your only goal is to down the boss, maybe it's less relevant, but you would be hard pressed to find someone who disagrees with the idea that more DPS is always better. When you are trying to maximize your personal skills at DPS spec, you attempt to maximize your damage. Tanks are no different. Your DPS is also contributing to downing the boss, and the more damage you can put out, the faster a boss goes down, the easier time your raid will have. Believe it or not, it is not solely the DPS player's job to deal damage. You may be the role that allows DPS to deal damage freely, but that does not make you exempt from dealing damage. If your raid is missing a tight DPS check and your DPS is extremely suboptimal, you are just at fault as your DPS players. This is why you are not truly an excellent tank until you can both tank the boss cleanly and maximize your personal DPS. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions on the content of this video or would like to see another topic covered, please feel free to leave a comment below.